You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 78 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I am the owner of Dr. Cool Heating and Air in Dallas, Dave Roberts. She writes like Lois Lane, but her articles hit like Superman. She's blogger, writer, TV personality, dog mom, Jessica Szilagyi.
What's up? Thanks for the great introduction, as always.
I just keep coming up with this funky ass stuff every day. How was your week?
It has been unexpectedly busy. How was your week?
Hot.
Yes, I feel like you have several more weeks of that, which is good for Dr. Cool.
Oh yeah, and I have an ad planned to put out that shows autumn in Georgia, pumpkin spice, 90-degree heat. You know, I'll make your house cool enough to enjoy a pumpkin spice latte.
You want to reach out to all the basic millennials?
As long as they have money.
I mean, I'm thinking, based on some of the articles I've been reading about the economy lately, about how most people can't go on vacation and can't do this and can't do that, I'm wondering how many millennials actually have air conditioning because they've spent all their money on, you know, pumpkin spice lattes and other ridiculous anti-capitalist, capitalist-loving things.
Well, it is interesting that the average American cannot absorb $1,000 emergency.
Yes.
And that's how we get in trouble with debt. Is, you know, you can finance it. That air conditioner can cost you $60 a month for the rest of your life. They even have financing plans that are like 20 years on an HVAC system. It's like, you guys realize they're good for 10 to 15. You still owe 5 years when that one dies.
It's crazy. I mean, I understand financing important things, and I guess air conditioning, I mean, that doesn't make sense. But it makes more sense than what you see. Like, now you can shop online and you can see payment plans, even like tennis shoes or something. Oh, make 3 easy payments. I'm like, what happened to budgeting or planning or in an emergency putting one thing on your credit card and then paying it off? I don't know.
Well, hell.
Everything is put off now.
I think you can go 84 months on new cars.
That seems like forever.
And that's partially, I would guess, is the reason for inflation. Because the payment perceivably doesn't change. And if you're not sophisticated enough to know the difference between $500 a month and $50,000 versus $80,000, but a damn SUV, and I think we talked about it before when I bought my new truck, a new Yukon Denali is $100,000. That's a house.
Right. My car payment is more, and I don't have it for 84 months, but it's more than my. Granted, I live in South Georgia where the cost of living is very low, so it wouldn't be that way if I lived anywhere else, but it's more than my mortgage.
Doesn't shock me. It does not shock me at all. So, you had a very eventful week with the Evans Board of Education, and What was the other one?
Screven.
Screven. I didn't want to pronounce it. Screven.
Yes. Eric and I attended the Evans County Board of Education, and I've been covering them for quite some time now. I've been covering them like all the other cities for the last 4 years, but in the last year, there's been a series of all Attorney General complaints, and we were doing positive media in the schools, and they kicked us out because I filed an open records request and told us we couldn't do it anymore. And they recently forged documents as an open records request fulfillment, I guess you could say. I don't know if it's technically fulfilling it when you make up records to give to someone, but the superintendent hired his wife in closed session and didn't announce it. His wife is a was convicted of felony shoplifting and lost her teaching certification, so she wasn't legally allowed to work in a school system. Just all this drama, all in one tiny little county where there's 10,000 people. But so it's always enjoyable to go. You know, we're always very warmly welcomed. They have snacks for us on our chairs. It's lovely. It's lovely to attend. But we went, and
yeah, don't eat that. That's a urinal cake.
I know, we don't eat there. But we went to the meeting, and we were on opposite sides of the room, and it was just a nightmare to watch. We didn't really speak much, but we watched as citizen after citizen after citizen who rose to speak against the nepotism and the corruption. And one of the bigger stories that I released about a week and a half ago is that the school system turned an autistic child over to the criminal justice system for something that was determined to be a result of his disability and his medical condition, and they criminalized it anyway. So people were just outraged, and they silenced them and made them sit down and censored their speech and cut their time off and all of these things. And then at the end, a man rose to defend this school board, and they gave him extra time and thanked him for coming, and he was allowed to have all these privileges that nobody else had. So it upset some people. A lady was ordered to leave and by the police, and it was just something like you see out of the movies. It was exhausting. But
with that, at what point is it appropriate for the crowd to rise up, drag them down from their seats, and stomp them?
So I got enough problems. I'm not going to comment on that specifically, but I do know that the superintendent possibly thought that was a possibility because he requested a heavy police presence. Those were the words. And they had 4 city policemen there the police there are wonderful. So they weren't trying to be oppressive or anything. They were just standing around because they were requested to be there. Took all the resources from the rest of the town. They were uncovered, but 4 police officers in one school board meeting that probably had 100 people in there.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to the next one. Eric loves it. His dad's my Facebook friend, and he always comments, "Please don't sacrifice my firstborn son."
He has another?
I think so.
Oh, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Push Eric out the door like a human shield.
No.
Then no one will be left to edit our podcast. You swoop in like Batman and Boy Wonder.
We need him. Run, Eric, run.
And then in Screven County, you had a nice not interview, but interaction with the county attorney.
I did. In Screven County, they are having a interesting time right now because they have a proposed landfill in their community, and so everything is really tense. And they were in executive session for 2 hours on Tuesday. When they came out, I just asked a question about whether or not any action was taken, and the attorney snapped at me and yelled at me in front of the commissioners, and it escalated. And when we were walking out, he looked behind him, and I was right there, and he slid out the door just enough where he could fit, and he let it fall back on me with all my camera equipment and everything. And I flung the door open and was like, "See that you're as about as good of a gentleman as you are an attorney." But he didn't seem to care for that comment too much, but I felt better, so.
Yeah, he doesn't have a soul. He's a lawyer.
He's also a pastor, which just makes it even worse. Like, God's watching you.
Does it?
It does!
You ever heard of the Spanish Inquisition? I mean, just because you're a man of the cloth doesn't mean you're a godly man.
It's true. It's true. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, you're not doing a very good job representing your church when you let a door fall on purpose on a woman.
Yeah, I mean, this is Georgia, the home of the place that will cut you off, flip you off, steal your parking space, then hold the door open for you.
Right.
Also, in politics, we're supposed to be able to have differences of opinion, and especially lawyers. Lawyers will argue against each other, call each other names, and then go have drinks together.
That is true. They're all in cahoots. And in Evans County, I did some research a couple nights ago, but in Evans County, the city attorney is also the state solicitor, the county solicitor. He's also he was the county attorney as well, and he is the economic development attorney. His business partner is the juvenile court judge and the municipal court judge for 2 cities. And then, I mean, it's like that in every county where everyone holds like 10 positions and they're all law partners and they fight against each other and then, charge their clients extra money so that they can predetermine the outcomes and act like it's all kosher.
Yeah, get the maximum billable hours. And then everybody, I've said that before with talking to a friend of mine. It's they're going to sue you over $10,000. You know who wins? He said, who? The lawyers.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Congratulations, you won the $10,000. It appears you still owe me $50. Not that you'll get the reference, but like in Blues Brothers, when they say, well, the gig paid $100. Y'all drank $400 worth of beer, so I'll need $300. So speaking of scumbags.
That's terrible.
Again, this is me saying it, not you. Todd Chrisley and his wife Julie indicted on 12 counts of federal conspiracy, bank fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion. Todd Chrisley, and I've never watched the show, is the star of, and I'm going to put air quotes around, reality show. Is it Chrisley Knows Best? Mm-hmm. Have you ever watched it?
I've seen clips, but I've never watched a whole episode.
Yeah, I've seen, like I said, clips, ads for it, and stuff like that while I'm watching something else. First of all, it amazes me that he has a wife. I mean, this dude missed a really good chance. I mean,
stop it.
I mean, come on. I assume he's putting on a voice, but I swear to God, this dude should be doing hair in Midtown.
What are you trying to say about people who do hair in Midtown?
They like dudes. I'm sorry, was that too ambiguous?
So I feel like there are so many people who are rejoicing about this. And I don't, these are the types of stories where, well, first of all, I don't have an opinion one way or the other of these people before this story and before some clips and magazine articles I've seen headlines for. So I'm not vested in this. I'm not praying for them and I'm not hoping for their demise. But when it's just like failure to pay your taxes, and we're going to talk about that in another story a little bit later, or even tax evasion, I'm just kind of like it's not, I don't know. But
I was on Willie's side and Wesley Snipes' side with tax evasion. Sure, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
But these other charges and some of the indictment that has leaked out at this point, I wish I know we'll still hear more information. It's pretty damning. And a lot of people don't know that this is in Georgia. This is in our BJ Pak is the U.S. attorney over this case.
He is coming up a lot lately. Okay, from 2007 to 2012, at least, the Chrisleys allegedly, I put that in there for all in Georgia, allegedly conspired to defraud numerous banks by providing the banks with false information such as personal financial statements containing false information and fabricated bank statements when applying for and receiving millions of dollars in loans.
And I also, when I read the story, I read some, brief thing that they'd been indicted, and I read his Instagram post first, which I will give him credit. It was very compelling. I was like, wow, that's, maybe he didn't do anything wrong. And then I read the DOJ press release and I was like, oh, wow, it looks like they definitely did something wrong. So, I mean, we don't have all the information, but it looks pretty bad. Because they didn't just not pay their taxes or screw with the system. It appears that false documents were provided across the board to various different people, which hurt private entities and stuff like that.
Well, look, and both things can be true.
Sure.
One, The Chrisleys claim that a disgruntled employee released these documents or gave them to the feds. That doesn't mean you didn't do it. That means you sucked at covering your tracks. And I heard of this guy a while ago, several years ago, through other contractors, that he was known for screwing contractors and stuff, that he was not really a great guy. And allegedly, Delvis, allegedly, but I'd heard from other people who've done work for him that he doesn't like to pay his bills. This is who he is, that he's a scammer, that he put on this air of being this millionaire and landed himself a show when he's really nothing but a con man.
Well, and I mean, nothing that I've seen that's been released, and again, not everything's been released, but there's been no conversation. Chrisley's claim that this former employee, this disgruntled employee, was given immunity to offer all this information, but we haven't heard, so-and-so said this, or a person close to the situation said that. There's been no talk of that. So I thought it was an interesting thing to come out of the gate with, because the Chrisley Instagram post came out the day before they were indicted. They got ahead of it, saying this is going to be happening to us. We have nothing to hide, and we're not ashamed of anything. So I thought that was an interesting approach to take.
Quote here, to get revenge, he took a bunch of phony documents to the U.S. Attorney's Office and told them we had committed all kinds of financial crimes, like tax evasion and bank fraud. Were they phony because the disgruntled employee made them up, or the phony because he made them up?
Well, and another aspect of that, too, is that they said some of the investigators shrugged it off a few years ago, and then they say, or the Chrisleys are saying, he persuaded a different set of investigators at the U.S. Attorney's Office to give it a second look and then gave him immunity. So to me, I'm reading a lot into it, of course, but it would seem harder to convince a second set of investigators who are aware of the first preliminary inquiry or review to look at a case when the office has already turned it down, and in addition, offer the guy something. That just doesn't make sense to me.
First of all, we would never have a racketeering prosecution ever if it weren't for immunity pleas. Or immunity deals. I mean, that's just the way it is. People aren't, why would he talk? It's, he said they bugged his home, which, again, if they had a warrant to do so and had reasonable cause, I mean...
No, he's saying the ex-employee did.
The ex-employee did, okay.
Yeah, which, I mean, why didn't we hear about a lawsuit?
Chrisley publicly claimed on a national radio program, quote, obviously the federal government likes my tax returns because I pay $750,000 to $1 million just about every year, so the federal government doesn't have a problem with my taxes.
I love this part. Except... Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
He didn't pay income taxes in 2013, 2014, 2015, or 2016, and he didn't file them either. So in the year that he's talking about it, for the previous 4 years, he didn't pay or file. That's a flag. And
yeah.
This kid's going to get thrown under the bus, and it's not relevant to this case, but I think it speaks to the family, maybe even if they're not doing anything deliberate, that they're just unconcerned and think they have no issue. But their son had a lien by the IRS and the state, or the Georgia Department of Revenue, a few years ago, and after they kind of came after him, he paid it back. I think it was about total $19,000 between the two, but it just, the whole family seems to allegedly think that there aren't any repercussions for what they do.
And I know, did you watch Real Housewives of Atlanta?
I did. I do.
Okay. I know Big Papa. I know, I mean, we've crossed paths.
Mm-hmm.
And he's another reality star, one, who's full of crap. his house that he built in Buck had all sorts of mechanics liens. Mechanics liens are guys like me, thousandaires doing work for millionaires, who don't get paid. And our only recourse is put a lien on the property. Should it ever sell one day and sell for more than he owes, then we might get paid back. Mm-hmm. Had all sorts of, and this place was obnoxious. I mean, like hand-carved toilets, gold inlay everywhere. It was really, really, I mean, if you took a caricature of like Jamie Farr and Cannonball Run as the Sheik, that's what this guy is. But he couldn't pay the bills on the mall he owned. I think it was South Lake, and the water and lights would get cut off and stuff like that. He was full of it, and he was another one that would put on airs, drive a really nice car, wear a really nice watch, and falsify all sorts of documents, and then not be able to pay the guy who cuts his grass. Or maybe that's how he made his money, or kept his money, was making sure he didn't pay the little guy.
Right.
It just, it came to mind because, I've run across Najjar a couple times and knew of Najjar a couple times. And I just kind of what kind of person he is. So I don't know. I guess it's lumping two Atlanta reality stars together, but man, when you see these people on TV pretending to be rich, it's a little much. The wealthy people I know don't act like that. They don't live like that. The truly wealthy people I know aren't opulent. They get that way by being smart with their money. I don't know if I said it on this podcast before, but the rich stay rich by acting poor, and the poor stay poor by acting rich.
Right.
And
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, though, because they've taken a very, most people will just say, I'm looking forward to my day in court, or the truth will prevail, or whatever, but we have nothing to hide. Like, that's just an interesting approach.
Well, he's not a rocket surgeon.
True. He's not a rocket surgeon.
So he's made his living in the public eye, just like going on the radio show proclaiming that he pays $1 million in taxes every year. That was to bolster his brand because he wanted his television show to sell. So and what we're talking about is essentially he scanned in his bank statements, cleared out the totals, and put in totals that he wanted that supported what he needed, which was to take loans for whatever he was going to do. And oftentimes what these shysters do is they take loans to pay off other loans that they've already taken, to keep kiting those loans around. I'm not saying that's what he did specifically, but that's often the scam that we see in when you're doing that sort of thing. And of course, while we're talking about federal charges, Jim Beck racked up a couple new charges.
Did he? I must have missed that news. In all of my internet-free zones that I was covering.
Your buddy put it on Facebook today.
Chris Carr?
Dale Russell.
Oh.
Your actual buddy.
Someone who actually would claim me as a friend, you mean?
Someone who would hold the door open for you.
There you go.
At least not slam it in your face.
Right. Take what I can get.
I think they're adding a few other things, including wire fraud.
Isn't that like the go-to tack-on charge? Because that's mail fraud.
Yeah.
Mail.
Oh, yeah. If you put anything in the mail. Look, of course, Jim Beck's lawyer says that he's completely innocent. Mm-hmm. Because the U.S. attorneys are known for filing erroneous charges. Yeah.
Right.
We've said it a dozen times here. The feds don't indict unless they think they've got a conviction.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. No matter what it's about, they don't come for you until they have the bow on the box.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not a, let's go ahead and indict them and see what shakes out.
No. And the GBI, they will arrest you and keep investigating. The FBI comes to you and says, look, we've got all this on you and we're going to indict you, why don't you take a little time to think about how you'd like to handle this?
Yeah, show up next Thursday.
Right. And all of their, I mean, not all of, I would not say that. I did not mean to say that. But they have a very high plea rate because their conviction rate is even higher. Not
Right.
that that's how I want the justice system to work, but when you consider that they've already completed the investigation when they charged them, I have a lot less problem with that than I do with the state where we're just charging people to keep them close by on standby.
Yeah, and they're very much on batting average, batting average, batting average.
Right.
If you're not closing cases, you're not going to stay in that office. And
Right.
you're certainly not going to advance. So, but we really don't have any more information other than additional charges filed on Jim Beck. And of course, Beck is proclaiming his innocence.
Okay, well, whatever whatever, Jim.
Jimbo. The IRS finally ready to make good on threats to strip U.S. passports from Americans who owe more than $52,000 in overdue taxes.
I'm one of the Americans who reads Drudge, and this headline, I kid you not, the link is on Drudge every year. And every year then I read the article and they're like, oh, but they've never actually done it. They're not prepared to act on it, but it could happen. They have that right. Like, that's how the articles are always worded. And I opened the one this year on CNBC and it's like, the IRS is finally ready to act. They've notified 400,000 people and they're finally ready to take action on this. Now, I don't agree with what they're doing, but I can appreciate that instead of just pretending like they can put the fear of God in people, they're not just bluffing. Like, I don't like it, but at least it's not just using the threat of government to intimidate people.
Well, in an attempt to make an acronym, Fixing America's Surface Transportation, the FAST Act. Good God, man. Why can't they just name stuff? We're going to get your money. Uncle Sugar wants his due. This law enables them to deny passport applications or revoke existing passports due to outstanding debts. Began in February of 2018 for debts of $51,000 and higher, has thus far covered applications for new or renewed passports.
And it's just due to the IRS. Not like you're late on your Amex card or something.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah. God, yeah. Notified more than 400,000 taxpayers that their passports are at risk since the program began, receiving $11.5 million as of the end of June 2018 from 220 individuals. About 1,400 more people had entered into payment agreements as of that date.
And they're kind enough to not take your passport if you're on a payment plan. So that's awfully nice of them.
And of course, this excludes military members, folks in bankruptcy, victims of tax-related identity theft. How would that? No kidding. You mean people who don't actually owe you money?
You know what I find funny is that they report that 11.5 million as of the end of June 2018 from 220 people. If you do the math on that, it's $52,200. I mean, and some change, but I don't know. I just find those numbers odd. And everything from the IRS nothing can be open. We can't confirm anything. So
Right.
I don't believe anything they say, but.
It also excluded have hardships that have led the IRS to deem the debt currently not collectible, or reside in a federal disaster area, have put in a request for an IRS installment agreement, and are in the process of negotiating with the IRS. Okay. So if you're in a hardship that deems it's just not collectible, I assume this is somebody who spouse died, they had joint debt, spouse died, no longer have income, something like that.
Personally 100% disabled or
Right, something like that.
Something you've already had to prove and is like verifiable.
Who has $52,000 in IRS debt, is not collectible, have a hardship, and can afford to travel overseas. I mean, because there's, I would guess that most of these people that owe $52,000 in taxes aren't vacationing in the south of Spain.
Right. I mean, of course there are outliers, but those people aren't the norm. I mean, by any means. Yes, there's always those people, like, the Chrisleys, allegedly. But
well, or you have, somebody who lives in Laredo, Texas, and they go back and forth across the border to visit family or
work,
whatever, something like that. But or up north and they're going across the border to Canada, or I don't know, they join the Peace Corps. I don't know, but rack up $52,000 in IRS debt and go join the Peace Corps to disappear. But yeah,
I'd rather pay the taxes.
So it's one of those things where I don't know that this is a huge threat for most people, which is why they have 220 out of 400,000. They're like, oh, I need to keep my passport, because the rest of them are like, I'm broke. Where am I going to go?
Right. They can't even afford to renew the passport.
Yeah, I'm moving out of my McMansion into a single wide trailer. What else are you going to take from me? I don't know. I don't know where I am on this.
I hate it. I hate the practice. I mean, like I said, I'm glad they're not just... I think it's poor taste to bluff. But I think it's wrong and speaks to the... I mean, what if it is for work? What if... I don't know. And the IRS, they say you have to enter into a payment plan. Like, okay, well, if you're behind and you're delinquent and they want to revoke your passport, maybe then they'll be more willing to talk. But you can't have a payment plan on your taxes 2 years in a row.
Well, but it also includes people who or excludes people who are in dispute, saying, no, this is not right. There's no way I owe this. This is an error. And as long as the dispute is open, of course, who gets to decide whether it's an error?
Yeah, go ahead. What if, I'm just saying, and I understand this isn't the norm, but I guarantee you we will hear a story about this where somebody is, behind on their taxes. And I understand $50,000 is a bigger threshold, but you can't, if you are on a payment plan in 2017, in 2018, you can't even apply to be on a payment plan again. So if you become delinquent, but you travel overseas for work, they're going to take your damn passport.
And what if you are overseas for work?
Yeah, that's a good point too.
And the only example I can think of is not military, but PMC, private military contractors. Or, hell, an air conditioning guy that picks up a contract overseas. It happens all the time. It's not just trigger guys. It's construction guys. It's, the person that works at the PX on post in Baghdad. All those are the overseas jobs that you could be stuck overseas, not be able to get back in the country because the IRS decides that. I assume the guy working the PX hasn't racked up $50,000 in tax debt, but the same thing. You're working in the UK for BP, and you're whatever you're doing. Now you can't get back in the country because the IRS has revoked your passport. And it could be something where there is a dispute and you don't know it because you're overseas.
I don't want to see one person wronged by this. That's all.
I think there's a lot of potential for wrong. On the surface of it, here's the thing: you shouldn't be traveling overseas if you owe $50,000 to somebody. All that money that you're spending to go travel needs to be going to pay whoever the debtor is, just as a matter of moral and principle. But using the threat of we're gonna suspend your passport or strand you overseas. Can you imagine flying into Hartsfield, walking through customs? They're like, no, you can't come in. To get past this turnstile is $50,000.
Government.
I don't know what the. On the other hand, it is better than locking people up.
Yeah, at least when they're out, they can keep working to rack up their tax bill. You know, like we're a good slave.
Right. I mean, but at least it's not. At least we're not paying to put them in prison.
I agree.
So, if you're going to have a law, you have to have teeth to it somehow. And if the teeth is not going to be lack of, loss of freedom, what's it going to be? You're super, super duper in debt? So I don't know. This makes such good radio. I don't know. Real quick. So a null, Null, license plate backfires on this guy.
I love his idea, though. I love his idea.
Okay, so this guy gets himself a vanity plate. This is null. And he's going to get one for his wife. This is void. So they would be null and void. But apparently null, I mean, not apparently no, but null also means zero when you start talking about computing. Coding, sorry, I'm an air conditioning man. I don't know. I mean, shit, I can make cool. So
he did this on purpose, though. He did this, obviously he did but he chose null on purpose in hopes that when it was entered into tickets, it would be null. Like he wouldn't be able to be legally given a ticket.
It didn't work. What did he end up racking up? Like $13,000 in fees.
Yeah, anytime an officer forgot to put the license plate in the ticket, it said null.
So since his license plate is NULL, anytime an officer forgot to put in like a parking ticket, I just put in null. So they gave him $13,000 worth of erroneous parking tickets and traffic citations that he didn't earn out of his plan to avoid his parking tickets.
And he's had a terrible time trying to get out of them. I think he had to work like alongside the DMV with the processing company that gives the tickets. And they've only been able, they have to whittle him down. And then obviously he can't be all over the state racking up tickets at the same time. But I mean,
good idea. I remember listening to the show when Giles was on, and he was talking about he and somebody else would never register their vehicles and just keep giving each other bills of sale, bouncing the ownership back and forth every 30 days. They never had to register it.
Oh, the American way. Sounds like something Todd Chrisley would do.
Yeah, except it'd be on a Bentley, not an 84 Escort.
I'm glad you thought that was so funny.
So, a surveillance plane may make a comeback in Baltimore.
There's so many things wrong with this story. I'm going to let you give the full rundown, but man, they'll just want to ping it every time you say something that's ridiculous.
Quote, our objective is to reduce major crime by 20 to 30% within the first year. When you look at the numbers, that's 70 to 100 people not being murdered.
I love the word choice.
I thought Baltimore was nice, Elijah Cummings.
Well, not only that, but is it just 70 to 100 people not being murdered, or is it like literally the entire city that's not being murdered? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, why is it just 70?
Let's back up. Okay, so there was a pilot program, so to speak. I'm awful. I really should be a father with my dad jokes.
Eric, you need to bleep those. Instead of the cuss words, just bleep the jokes.
I'll be serving a 3-week suspension. So
he'll be issuing a public apology when he returns too.
So this pilot program to fly a surveillance plane over Baltimore was launched, again, so to speak, and to observe what's going on, obviously, in the city, and reporting it to police. This was a private company that's doing it. Surveillance Systems, coordinated by the Greater Baltimore Committee. So, essentially what you've got is a low-flying satellite that does nothing but circle the bad areas of the city, keeping tabs on the citizens. The first time it came out, there was no press release, no one was told, and the ACLU, justifiably lost their minds over it. It's
understandably.
Being funded from a grant. John and Laura Arnold, who also funded the plane 3 years ago.
So that's the most alarming part of this to me, because it's expensive. And what do they, are these greater good people? Why would they want to put out so much money unsolicited for nothing in return? Twice.
Do you want the dystopian answer?
I want the truth.
The dystopian answer is they're running their own crime syndicate, and by controlling the intelligence going to the police department, they can run their own operations and crack down on their competition.
Ah, I see.
And if anybody is listening, I am available to write screenplays, as long as they don't involve any long, complicated words that I can't pronounce.
Yes, you can email Alex Jones at allongeorgia.com.
1776. The Arnolds also would pay for extra officers and oversight. Man, there's so much wrong with this. One, why are they, and I must have missed what type of plane it is. When I saw a picture of it, it looked not much bigger than a Cessna. Why? If I want to gather intelligence in a neighborhood, I can launch a drone.
That's a good point.
With no cost, with very, very low cost. Whatever the cost of the drone is, $500 or whatever. Launch the drone, gather specific information on the specific crime that I'm investigating or the block that I'm investigating, and take that actionable intelligence and move forward with it. This is filtering through a private organization, going to the police with civilian oversight. It seems onerous at that point. You're doing slow loops in the air, doing nothing but burning airplane fuel to gather the same information that a trip to Best Buy can get you, with probably better photography because you can fly it lower.
So, I didn't catch it, I might have missed it, but what is the technology that, because the push behind it is, I think it was a robbery that it helped solve. They used the plane in conjunction with the many security cameras they have around the city and were able to find the suspect rather quickly. But is it like a live feed? Are they...
It's got to
obviously
be.
Someone has to fly it, but is there someone up there sending video back down, or is someone what are they chasing someone? What are they doing?
From what I'm understanding is it would take too long to scramble a pilot, get him in the air, and then respond to a robbery. It would have to be in the area where they radio up, say, look, we're going to need surveillance at this location, and then they start flying overhead. Would be my guess. And of course, just like any other potential right stomping the government does, is they're going to tell us how great it is. During its brief run, the plane was able to solve high-profile shooting case of elderly siblings in Walbrook.
Okay. I misunderstood. It's a shooting, not armory. But why? How is this any different than, the helicopters that come in and help and spotlight and just that there's a camera. Is that it? And this is privately funded, which I can appreciate. But again, this is a huge expense. What is it? $6 million over the next 3 years total?
Yeah, so I'm like, here's the thing. It maybe it's the passive nature of an airplane. Helicopters are noisy. You can sit there at a decent altitude and just kind of fly slowly over with a camera. I mean, like I said, it's like having a low level satellite in the area that's easy to reposition. Helicopters, I assume, burn more fuel. Actually, I know they burn more fuel than a fixed wing, because helicopters don't glide. Everything about them wants to come crashing to the ground. I don't know other than it's privately funded. I think the problem the ACLU has is it's flying patterns anyway. It's constantly observing. Mm-hmm. But from a legal standpoint, I don't know how it's any different from having cameras on every corner.
Well, and it's no different than the helicopters that fly around rural areas looking for weed. I mean, they look at all of our property when they're looking for... They look at residential even when they know they're supposed to be looking at farmland and things like that. So,
sure, and they're just looking to see what they see.
Sure.
Same thing with flying over at night with FLIR camera. Now it's no longer applicable because lights have changed, LEDs changed everything. But flying over and just looking for heat signatures and go, okay, that must be a grow house. Let's go look at it. And then they bust in, and then this happened to somebody I know. They bust in and find out that he's got a hydroponic lettuce, literally, not the devil's lettuce. Literally a lettuce operation. That they came and handcuffed everybody, put them down, set everybody down, started interviewing them, tear everything apart. This happened to, I think it was Bartow. Went through the grow operation and said, turns out you were growing lettuce. Okay, sorry. Anyway, that's off on a tangent. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a waste of money. I think you can get better, actionable, faster intelligence by putting a drone in every, I won't say in every car because that's just a waste of money, but in every precinct that is in a vehicle with a drone operator who's trained on how to do that, and put that in the air for pennies versus millions. And
it limits the scope of when the drone is used, because aside from, having a drone race or something or screwing around, they're not just going to... One, you can't because you got to charge it or change the batteries or whatever. But, they're not just going to have heavy surveillance all the time. It's much more likely to be limited.
Right. It's much less 1984.
Mm-hmm. I'm still not a huge fan, but if it's in response to an active search for something, or I guess I can get on board with that.
No, if I have a suspect, if I know that something happened at 1st and 32nd Street, and I have a drone in that precinct, go ahead and launch the drone. We're looking for a guy wearing a green jacket and a black hat, and fly that over and say, okay, now we've got him. And drones have the technology; they can ping a target and follow him, and relatively silently. And sit there and follow him and allow you to say, okay, we're moving on the suspect. We know exactly where he is. It reduced risks to both the suspect and the police officers, because you're able to, you're not just going door to door, which ends up protecting people's rights when you're not kicking doors open, going, we need to search for the suspect like they did in Boston after the bombing. Which is a subject onto itself. Speaking of crapping on people's privacy, Facebook paid contractors to transcribe users' audio chats.
Did you know about this?
No.
Me either.
I'm not shocked.
No. I mean, I was just kind of like, meh.
So contract employees are not told where the audio was recorded or how it was obtained, only to transcribe it, said the people who requested anonymity for fear of losing their jobs. They're hearing Facebook users' conversations, sometimes with vulgar content, but not know why Facebook needs them transcribed. Facebook has not disclosed to users that third parties may review their audio. That's led to some contractors to feel their work is unethical. Really? So,
good on them for at least recognizing it. There's plenty of robots, literally, people who wouldn't even recognize there's an issue there, but...
Or care. How much?
Right.
Yeah, you're going to pay me $25 an hour to sit here and listen to this guy talk to his girlfriend? Okay. The company said the users who were affected chose the option in Facebook's Messenger app to have their voice chats transcribed. The contractors were checking whether Facebook's artificial intelligence correctly interpreted the messages, which were anonymous. Much like Apple and Google, we paused human review of audio more than a week ago. Ooh. The company said on last Tuesday. So WeChat, and as listeners know, you and I have never been in the same room together.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we record the show is we are on a Google Chat, and we record our audio and send it to Eric, and he takes this awful thing that we do and turn it into something that's somewhat usable to listen to. If I'd known that they were going to go ahead and listen to it and transcribe it, man, we could have been ahead of the game and saved Eric a lot of time.
Well, yeah, and we couldn't include the transcript in our podcast release every week for the people who can't listen while they're at work, you know?
I really want to hear, with my accent and the way I mangle words, what the computers think I said. Because Siri doesn't understand a damn word I said.
Right. That would be entertaining.
This is, I don't know. This is further down the rabbit hole with Zuckerberg and his ever-ending quest to have every bit of everybody's information ever. The questions come up: is he selling that information to advertisers? What you and I say privately, is it for sale? So if I tell you offline that I really like Gulf Shores, next week am I seeing an ad on my Facebook for Gulf Shores?
Probably not. It's probably going to come up in about 15 minutes. Right.
So this is where we get back into the conversation of, is Facebook, is social media a utility at this point? Is it a utility much like telephones? And we'd all be appalled if Verizon was transcribing our conversations and then selling it to advertisers.
Do we know that they don't?
Man, I don't know. Conspiracy theory. Oh, Alex Jones.
I was going to say twice in one show.
Yeah, I know. But that I will say something, and of course it's coincidence probably. I'll say something, then later on, scrolling through social media, I'll see an ad for something I was talking about. That Siri is always listening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have an Alexa for that reason.
Me either, but I think, you know, I have a somewhat different perspective of social media, and I think that I've even talked about it on this show. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I mentioned that I think maybe it has something to do with like getting censored for fake news or whatever. I would pay because it's a forum for me to put my work out there and for All on Georgia. So I would be comfortable entering into some sort of contract with Facebook because I don't use it to, I mean, I share pictures of my perfect dogs, but that's not my sole purpose or to connect with people on a personal level. It is very much a work thing for me. So I have a different opinion, and while I have personal conversations, like, I don't know. I don't feel like my privacy is being invaded by this company because I'm, one, choosing to use it, and two, like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm not using it to have an affair or do anything that could come back and bite me. And I understand it's the principle of the thing, but I don't know. I don't see it the way that a lot of people see these things.
Well, here's where I see the problem is social media has kicked in to say, you pass red flag laws and, we're going to help. So at what point is a joke told on a Google Hangout, on a Facebook chat, going to be transcribed, lose all context, be handed over to the government, and have someone's Second Amendment rights stripped from them?
Oh, I mean,
because
that's a matter of time for sure.
Right, and I know I'm connecting a yarn to a lot of tacks on the board here, but it's already been said that the proposed red flag ideas that POTUS is pushing forward is going to include social media and social media posts. Some things are sarcasm. A lot of things are sarcasm. A lot of stuff I say is sarcastic, particularly in some of the groups that I'm in. There's a friend of my Facebook who's a Marine, and you know this because he'll tell you within 5 seconds of meeting you. But his stuff is really, really sarcastic, off color, but funny. And it just, from a guy who spent his life, in the Marine Corps and government service, he has a twisted sense of humor that I appreciate. If you're going to use that as a red flag law, and then you're going to take something that the FBI would never be allowed to do. If I called you on my Verizon phone and I said something to you, the FBI, without a warrant and without probable cause, could never take that and apply it to a red flag law. And I've told you some awful jokes, most of them bad dad jokes. But if someone would take a sarcastic comment that I make to you privately on a chat, transcribe it, drop all context, hand it over to the ATF and go, this guy shouldn't have guns. That's where I see this going. And I hate slippery slope arguments. I hate super dystopian arguments. I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theories, but that's where this is headed. I mean, this happens to be coming along at the same time that our small government Republican president is talking about red flag laws. Enough of a soapbox?
No, I mean, you're right. It's such a convoluted mess, and I shudder at the idea of Facebook operating like Georgia Power or the telephone company or Comcast or... Ugh.
And this is a good time to mention your newsletter.
And that these are not our...
These are our opinions.
Ours. Yes.
And specifically my opinion. I don't want to loop Jessica into my crazy Alex Jones-esque rants. These are our individual, especially when I'm talking about the Board of Education up there. These are our separate independent opinions, not necessarily those of All in Georgia. And because of Facebook's policy of editing and controlling political voices, Jessica is coming out with a newsletter where you can get the unadulterated, straight from the beak opinions and stories that Jessica is famous for.
Yeah, so I just get people who, I'll put out something as part of a series, and while I link to other things, they're like, I completely missed this, or, and of course I don't expect everyone to read everything I post either. So I'm just going to do a weekly newsletter that kind of compiles the bigger, either local or state level stories that I write, or perhaps even now and then that my coworkers doing the same things write. Plus little extra tidbits. Like this week, I'm planning to put an extra little clip from the meeting where I was yelling and waving papers from the back of the room in the video or in the newsletter and just tidbits of information. And then, of course, when session starts up, that's where I will put a lot of information. But I don't want to overload people, so I'm not going to be spamming inboxes, but just a roundup. So when people, at their leisure can browse headlines and catch up there because Facebook censors.
I want you to take a selfie every day of session. And I want to watch the expression on your face change as we get to day 40.
I was talking to a friend of mine who is a former state rep. I was talking to him earlier this week, and he's like, how are things? You're everything's so crazy, but are you still liking your job? And I'm like, I love my job. I'm so happy. Even when it's stressful, I'm so happy when session's not in. I just freaking hate the legislature. They're horrible humans. They do horrible things. They hurt people.
And I notice a difference in you as we get closer and closer to the end of sessions. It's just like, okay, don't trigger Jessica today.
Seriously. And I know I can feel it, and I know people see it about me, and it's bad. I don't know if I don't know if I'll do it to the same degree that I've done it in the years past. I mean, at some point, I don't want to hate the world just because of what they're doing.
At some point, it'll eat your soul.
Yes, it will. It totally will. And I am not at risk of becoming one of them, which is what happens. You either get so defeated that you quit, or you become part of the problem. I'm not at risk of becoming part of the problem because I hate the problem too much. But I might quit.
But you might quit. This is where I'd make a joke about climbing bell towers, but that would get us red flagged. Closing thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to complain about Ohio State for 30 seconds. I know we're running short on time, but they put in... okay, let me back up. They are asking they hired a trademark attorney to make it the Ohio State University. And in doing that, they're asking because they want to put it on their clothing and their hat. So instead of OSU, they can sell a hat that just says the THE. I don't know why that sounds stupid to me, but you sports people, I don't understand you. But anyway, they want to trademark the word the. In order to make it the Ohio State University, they have to trademark the. First of all, it's a public institution. I don't support public institutions, public entities, public agencies, or any of that having trademarks. Second, you can't take the word the. The is everybody's. And it's too broad, and I hope they lose in football and in the.
From your lips to God's ears. First of all, Ohio is the worst state in the union. I'm married to a Michigander. She's a Michigan fan. I'm a Florida fan. We are united by our mutual hate of Ohio State. And it really is. It's a douchebag thing that even when they get introduced at NFL games, they say what school they went to. They'll say Florida State. I went to Clemson. They'll say, Bob Jones, the Ohio State University. You douchebags. It really is. One of the nicest guys I know is a pulmonary surgeon. He was telling me about a shirt he saw at a Michigan game. It says, God bless the USA except Ohio. F Ohio. And they really are. They're the worst fans in sports. Man, they're fun to hate. They really are. But yeah, the whole trademark thing. When I saw you put that link on there for your closing thought, I was like, you got to be kidding me.
It's terrible.
You want the.
You're wasting, and not only that, but you're wasting. Who does trademarks? What agency is in charge of that?
It's a patents.
That's probably, yeah. It's terrible. This is a real story. I verified it, but the article that I'm referencing is Huffington Post. So, of course, they don't give you any information. They don't say anything about anything. It's terribly written. You should get your news from allongeorgia.com. However, when I saw it, I'm like, they're wasting time putting this through the system only for it to get rejected for the word the. Bumping other trademark applications. They just suck. Or they the suck.
They the suck. Les suck.
Yes.
My closing thought this week, Cobb County has decided that they are not going to prosecute small amounts of weed. It's not decriminalizing. They're just not going to waste their bandwidth on it, speaking of government resources, which prompted a bunch of Facebook posts saying Cobb County decriminalized marijuana and the obligatory, I don't want people driving high through Paulding, or not Paulding, but Cobb County. Driving under the influence is a separate crime. This is simple. It says simple possession of less than an ounce. They're just going to destroy. I've seen it done. I've seen it done by officers, not personally because I'm not a weed guy, but I've not my personal weed being destroyed, but seen it done when this you get a dime bag, they take it, throw it on the ground, stomp it out until you get out of here, because it's not worth the time, especially with friend of the show getting jury nullification on growing his own weed. It's a smart move by Cobb County. It does nothing but ease the taxpayer's burden on victimless crime of the mere possession of marijuana. And I've said it for a long time, if you go to jail for simple possession, you deserved it. Because for the most part, you didn't go to jail for simple possession. You went to jail for being an a-hole. If all it is, I hear people, well, they went to jail for just having a roach in the car. No, they didn't. They went to jail for being an a-hole. For something else, for either assault or something else. It wasn't the roach, it was the half pound of meth in the trunk that put him in jail. And it's that's always a convenient thing to blame. But good on Cobb County on this one is just don't clog up the courts, clog up the jails with people who are rolling around with a dime bag of weed.
I'm glad to see the trend. And there's a couple other counties that I think are considering it. I hope it becomes a thing. But like you said, I think it's going to, in the examples that you referenced, I think it's going to maybe, until there's more information, more understanding by the public, there's going to be a lot of stories of being wronged.
It's the nennies, the little old ladies going, well, I don't want them smoking that jazz lettuce getting on the road. No, it's a separate crime. Driving high is no different from driving drunk. It's against the law. Driving drunk being against the law doesn't mean you get arrested for having a six-pack. In possession of a six-pack. Drinking a six-pack might get you. So, anyway, good on Cobb County on that one. We hammer local governments when they do wrong. So, here's a cookie, Cobb County. Good for you.
That's the only one you're getting. So.
It's the only one you're getting. I've been
chew it slowly.
Yeah. Enjoy it. I should remind everybody to like and share the podcast on social media. We certainly appreciate any feedback, even negative feedback. Keep it to 3 bullet points. So, for Jessica Salachi, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a good week.